Hello, everyone. This is Tetrapolium, and I'm here today to bring to you another part of my team building and ADV video series. This one's going to be a little bit more abstract and not having much to do with literally being in the builder, and more so what to do when you have a team that you're testing out and what you should be looking for when you're thinking about maybe making adjustments to the team. So this is going to be a little bit more generalizable to how to improve as a battler as well. But we're going to focus a little bit more in depth on the team building aspects of reviewing your replays. So the first thing is, how are you going to review? And we're going to keep it simple. There are going to be 3 questions that we're going to ask, and we're going to try to answer them throughout this video and in practice with some replays that I have prepared for you. So the 3 questions are as follows. What plays could you have improved on? Did any of your sets feel wrong? And why did I win or lose the game? Now, these are extremely general questions, and we're going to get a little bit more in depth as the slides go, but just keep in mind that everything that has a beginning has an end, and a journey of 1,000 steps begins with one single step. This is what I've learned as my time as an end perch in Mushi League, which shout outs to all my end perch teammates. You guys were amazing. But what plays can be improved? Well, I want you to look at turns in a short-term context and evaluate if the decisions that you're making are the ones that make the best progress for you, or give up the least amount of progress in cases where you're playing on the back foot. Because, sometimes you have to play to preserve, and that's the only way to get yourself to a stable position. And, that it happens. But what we really want to do is limit it to the however many options you have. Like, at most in a Pokemon game, you have 4 moves and 5 switches, so 9 options. Are you making the best of those 9 options to make progress in a particular turn? Now, it's possible that, say, 2 or 3 options are pretty good. You could have made any of those and made about an equal amount of progress, in which case, great. As long as you made one of those 2 or 3 moves, fine. And there are going to be some obvious, like, no-no moves. Like, you clearly are not going to switch your Skarmory into a Magneton. That is not a good move for you in most cases. Or, like, hypothetically, if Dugtrio kills your Jirachi with Earthquake, God forbid, you're not going to switch to another Earthquake Pokemon as one of these however many options you have if you can help it. Or I should say a Pokemon that is weak to Earthquake. So some of these things will be kind of easily pruned out with, like, the very bare minimum game knowledge, but sometimes there will be situations where maybe one of the 9 options that you have is the best one, but it's not very easy to tell that that's the situation. And one thing that can help you is to use your timer and actually sit and think about it, which is something that very many of us are not very good at. I know I tend to click a little bit too fast in certain situations. But that can help you to figure it out in real time. But if you're reviewing a replay, you have plenty of time to think about this. Just go through the options that you had and see if one of them jumps out to you as being really good. Also, you have a little bit of the power of hindsight that can help you to make this. I would try not to use too much hindsight, because it's going to give you a false impression of what you could have done. Because, some knowledge you may not have had, and that's what we're going to talk about next, is to be honest with your game knowledge in context. There are plenty of examples of this. One that I don't know if many of you know this, but the team Beer Lover, or Big Five Star Me, at least the paste for it on Revival Tournaments Discord, which I definitely recommend that you join and get involved in the community. That Blissey outspeeds a standard Skarmory. Did you know that Blissey on that team had a 182 speed stat? Maybe you didn't. Or maybe you did. I don't know. And that Blissey has Fire Blast. So, you know, you may have made a choice where it's like, okay, I can get my Skarmory in and get up another layer of spikes, which will keep my, I don't know, keep my progress going. It stops a certain Pokemon from being able to come in to kind of like clean the rest of my team. Maybe they have like a very weak Doug trio that can only switch into one more layer of spikes, but not a second layer. And you try to get your Skarmory to do something versus Blissey. You didn't realize, oh, actually, that Blissey's faster than my Skarmory, and it's going to KO with Fire Blast, and you lose the game for that. That could be a situation. It could be a situation where you didn't know what Pokemon they had in the back. You made a play. It was like, okay, I think they're going to have Lastmon Suicune, so I have to preserve my Zapdos to the end game, and you gave up another piece, and in reality, their Lastmon was actually Celebi, and your Zapdos is not beating that Lastmon Celebi. So that could be a sort of situation in and of itself where the game knowledge that you had in the context of the game, you were trying to make good plays there, but you didn't have the knowledge at the time to actually make the best play. So I still want you to analyze to make sure that your decision was logical based on the assumptions that you were making, and if those assumptions were logical, and then acknowledge that you need to study some sample teams so that you can avoid some future mishaps. In some cases, maybe your opponent's not playing a sample team, or maybe your opponent is playing like a bastardization of a sample team where they switched a Pokemon out and you were trying to play off of what you knew about the sample and they switched up on you. Things like this happen. Don't beat yourself up over it. Just acknowledge that sometimes you need to make plays understanding your opponent's team, and sometimes you need to make plays in the general case. So it's hard to know when to do what. And then lastly, don't beat yourself up over losing a 50-50. If you got down to a situation where if you need to click one of two moves, and depending on what your opponent does, one of those moves wins, and if they did something else, the other of the moves wins. Like, you can't beat yourself up over, like, oh, I should have known that they were gonna make such and such play, and I should have made the counter for that, because, like, we don't know what's gonna happen in that context. Similarly, don't beat yourself up over, like, crazy hacks. Like, if you put yourself in a position where it's like, I will win the game as long as my opponent doesn't freeze me on the first turn that they click Ice Beam, and they freeze you on the first turn that they click Ice Beam, like, you still gave yourself a 90% chance to win that game. If you were in that situation again, you should do that again. And if you're in that 50-50 situation, well, sometimes maybe you click the other move, but sometimes clicking that other move is still going to be a loss for you, and you just have to accept that as well. What you maybe could do is try to look back retroactively to see if you could have made plays to avoid ending up in a 50-50 situation, but in some cases, like, it's wishful thinking. Like, we're not going to live in a world of ideals. We have to accept that sometimes we're not going to make the best possible plays, and, like, it is what it is. That's just Pokemon. But, again, always acknowledging that we can do a little better, and through analysis and through review, maybe we find some better lines. Number 2, did any sets feel wrong? This might sound like weird, to put it this way, but there are some other questions that you can kind of ask that fall under this umbrella. So, like, one example question would be, does your team force you to do weird things versus a certain Pokemon or a certain set, for example? So here's an example of a team. This is a pretty good team. Very many players have run this with much success, but admittedly, there is a little bit of a issue Pokemon for this team, and that is Heracross. And now you might say, okay, well, Heracross isn't so bad. You just sack one Pokemon, and then Dugtrio comes in and revenges it with Aerial Ace. Okay, yes, that's true. That's what this team is most of the time going to have to do. Say, for example, you're up against a Heracross team with no spikes, which is not uncommon. A lot of Heracross teams don't tend to fit a Skarmory. And the fighters in general tried to make progress through their big damage numbers rather than like chip through spikes. Not to say that fighters can never be on a spikes team, but it is pretty common in the case of Heracross that it is not on a spikes team. You sack your Claydol, because Claydol's got limited utility versus a spike-less matchup, and then you bring in your Dugtrio and revenge kill with Aerial Ace. Now, keep in mind that there are going to be some sometimes maybe that's not the best play, sacking the Claydol. Maybe you need the Claydol for some other thing, like it has to explode on a Last Mon Snorlax, or it has to be the Rock Resist versus a Regirock or something like that. In which case, you may have to find another way to sack and get into Dugtrio, or find a creative way to switch the Dugtrio in safely to the Heracross. But Heracross can be really annoying if it clicks a substitute on you switching to the Pokemon that you're trying to sack to Heracross. Well, all of a sudden, Dugtrio's not that good a counter to Heracross anymore. Or the set that is really diabolical is Endure Salicberry with Reversal. Heracross will allow the Dugtrio to come in, Endure, so that Dugtrio goes for Aerial Ace, leaves it at 1 HP, pops the Salicberry, now it's faster than Dugtrio, and the combination of Reversal and a Bug-type move, usually Mega Horn, is basically 6-0ing this team. I think Milotic maybe lives a Reversal from full. I'm not sure, but like you're not always going to be in a situation where you have a Pokemon that can live that. One of your checks might be chipped. So you might have to do weird things, like if you can identify that this is an Endure Heracross, maybe Dugtrio's going to have to lock into Earthquake instead to try to chip the Heracross, but not give it the Reversal or the Salic boost that it needs. And then do some creative sort of stuff like Toxic it with Milotic so that it is on a timer. And that is like a weird thing that you might have to do against Heracross. Like if you give it a Guts boost, that could be really, really annoying for you, but like you can't afford to lose to like that Reversal version of a Heracross. Even like a substitute Reversal Heracross could be really annoying for this team. So this may be an indication that you might have to run some sort of tech for the particular problem Pokemon. In this case, I think that Heracross is a rare enough Pokemon that you might just accept that sometimes Heracross is going to run through your team if you're bringing this. Or accept that you're going to have to make some, like, out-of-the-box level plays, like locking into a move that isn't Aerial Ace on your Dugtrio, or trying to Toxic it with Milotic so that it can't make that much progress on you. Or maybe you're bringing Skarmory hard in on the Heracross, clicking Drill Peck until it kills your Skarmory, and then you go to Dugtrio to get the trap. Like, yeah, you'll have to do weird things sometimes. And if that's acceptable for you, then that's good. But if it's not acceptable for you, then perhaps we have to make a change to the team. For this team, I don't know exactly what that might be. Maybe you want something that is resisting a bug flying combo. So maybe you're looking to add a flying type that isn't Skarmory to this team. I don't know where you would fit it, because this team kind of needs a lot of the pieces that it has, but I don't know. Maybe if you want to get by without Doug Trio or get by without Metagross or something like that, you could try that instead. Is your team lacking in tools to beat a certain threat? So I'm going to show a team that I brought to a tournament game, and I'll let you analyze it and think to yourself, is there one Pokemon in particular that gives this team a lot of trouble? And if you answered Zapdos, then great. You were on the ball. You understand this tier pretty well. Zapdos, as you know, or as you should know, is the strongest electric type attacker, at least at base, in the format. It is very commonly used on a lot of teams, and with the coverage of Hidden Power Grass, it can hit Swampert very easily. There is nothing on this team that really wants to switch into Zapdos. The best you can do is go to Regirock, and you just hope that they're going to allow you to trade into the Zapdos with Regirock. Why did I bring this team? Well, because I figured that my opponent would not bring Zapdos, and they didn't, and it worked out for me, so great. But this is a very fishy sort of team, and if you are lacking in tools to beat a Pokemon, especially one as common as Zapdos, then you may want to look at making some changes to it so that you're not so badly beaten. There's a version of this team where the Charizard is instead a Raikou, which definitely helps you out because Raikou can switch into a Thunderbolt, and it kind of threatens the Zapdos out. Now, that being said, with an offense team, you're not always going to have the best switch-ins, but this team kind of, I mean, not only do we not have great switch-ins for Zapdos, we don't have great revenge killers of Zapdos either, so keep all of that in mind when you're building, and be honest with yourself in the review. Like, Zapdos is 6-0ing this team, most likely, and if I'm not okay with that, then I'm going to need to make changes. The other thing is, could a slight tweak to a moveset or EV spread improve a common matchup for you? So let's take a look at these two Pokemon here, Claydol and Tyranitar. You may notice, if you are a Claydol spammer, such as myself, that the standard Claydol set suggests that you have this much attack, 216, with a plus attack nature. That is so that your Earthquake is going to 2-hit KO, 252 investment Tyranitar. Now, this example has a 248 HP Tyranitar, but, I mean, that doesn't really matter. Like, the roll doesn't change at all. You're still going to 2-hit KO, for the most part, these other bulky Tyranitar variants. The reason why this matters so much is because Claydol is usually packed on teams like, say, the top one, where if you let Tyranitar get to +2, you don't really have a great way to stop it. So +2 Tyranitar Rock Slide is 1 flinch away from 2-hit KOing Skarmory. You're doing a lot of damage to Blissey, if not outright killing it. 1 flinch away from killing Milotic. Doug Trio is outsped by +2 Tyranitar, and Metagross is outsped and dies to an Earthquake, so, like, that could be really scary. So the only way that you can stop a bulky DD Tyranitar from getting that +2 and going really stupid against your whole team is if you have enough attack investment for the Claydol to manage that, to stop the Tyranitar from being able to go for +2 because you're threatening to kill it with the second Earthquake. Then, say, if your Doug Trio is faster than +1 Tyranitar, which it ought to be on a team like this, you can revenge kill with the Doug Trio and you'll be fine. You may lose your Claydol for it, but that's a small price to pay for not getting completely swept by +2 Tyranitar. So that could be an option for you. Now, there are some times when you can kind of afford to not do that. Say if you have a secondary DD Tyranitar counter on the team, maybe say if this Milotic was a Swampert. I don't know if I would suggest that for this team. Swampert doesn't fit the pace quite as well as Milotic does, but if you did have such a team, then okay, maybe you can get away with not running as much attack investment on that Tyranitar, because you can stop that Tyranitar from getting to +2, or at least stop it from getting to +2 very easily by using your other rock resist. Though, and that can afford you to run a more defensive Claydol. But alas, sometimes you've got to do what you've got to do, and if you don't want to lose to that bulky DD Tyranitar, then you might have to bite the bullet and run a lot of attack investment on your Claydol. I know I don't like to do that either, but it has to be done sometimes. Why did I win or lose? Now, this is something that is really hard to do if you're not going to be honest with yourself. So you have to be honest. You have to say, I game planned poorly if you lost, or I got lucky if I won sometimes. But what we're not doing here, and shoutouts to the Art of War for competitive Pokemon players by Mr. Jamvad on YouTube. Very good channel. You should watch him if you want to improve as well. But don't focus so much on I got this one turn right, and focus more on some like broader picture things. Like my team had counters to my opponent's win conditions. So like if your opponent is like all in on Snorlax and you have a super duper hard Snorlax counter, even like a Metagross, for example, or you want to get more esoteric like a Sableye, for example, then like great. That's pretty easy to identify, and a good reason to win a game is that you are prepared for a particular win condition. Maybe you made some early progress. You found turns to get spikes off. You got a Thunder Wave off on something. Like a great example is like, say you put yourself in a position where your Zapdos is facing an enemy Skarmory. A lot of times, players don't want to stay in with that Skarmory. They're going to switch. And if you get a Thunder Wave off on a switch in, say something like a Jolteon or like a Tyranitar that doesn't have Lumberry, that can put you ahead very early in a game. And making plays like that could be the reason why you won the game. So identify those things. And other things you'd be like, I positioned my win condition in a way that my opponent couldn't counter. A part of the reason why I've got the Art of War for competitive Pokemon battle players here is that Jamvad talks about attacking where your opponent can't defend. And if you position your pieces, say like a Metagross, on a Pokemon that can't deal with Metagross, say like Snorlax, for example, or Blissey, or Regice, so all of these special walls, and your opponent doesn't have a good switch in for Meteor Mash, then taking that opportunity to get your Metagross in on a turn that it's safe to do so, that is a big momentum swinger, and that could be a reason why you won the game. And then the counter for reasons why you may have lost a game is maybe you didn't find turns to get your spikes up. You saved your Skarmory for way too late in the game when like getting the spikes up doesn't matter anymore. You didn't position win conditions or progress makers in safe ways. Say, for example, switching the Doug Trio in on a Tyranitar that's clicking Focus Punch. I've done that a lot. It's not a great place to be. Don't try to call out the Rock Slide too crazy. Or say you could have maybe won if you got your Suicune in, getting those Calm Minds early so that Zapdos is not in a place that it can fire off those Thunderbolts and threaten the 2 or 3 hit KO on you. But you kind of sat on your hands a little too long. You didn't play too aggressive with the Suicune to get it in. And you allowed your opponent to position themselves where it's like, Zapdos is KOing something on your team. Let's say, I don't know, a Tyranitar, a whatever the case may be. And now that's going to be the Pokemon that's facing down your last mon, Suicune. And it's over from that position in most cases. So, yeah. Keep all of this stuff in mind. We're going to get into more concrete examples as I switch us over to some battles. I'm live putting the music on so that I can sometimes comment on it. Shout out to Battle Revolution for having some banger tracks. But this is a battle that I had on ladder. This is Agency Pyramids is one of my alts. Shout out to the Agency. And Sinodin is just another ladder player. This is in the 1600s-ish. I'm just shy of the 1600s, I guess. So we're going to get into this battle. This is a replay that I've already put some thought into myself. Just know that my team is going to be a little bit more on the stall side as we get into this. Aerodactyl in versus Skarmory. So my Aerodactyl is choice band, like standard Aerodactyl set. It's meant to put some pressure on some leads like Salamence or particularly Zapdos, and even sometimes Tyranitar, because Tyranitar is oftentimes very scared of a lead HP fighting Aerodactyl, which will just straight up kill Tyranitar. That being said, we don't really particularly love to see Skarmory, because Skarmory can kind of just get the spikes up. So Fortress is my team's answer to Skarmory, but the problem is I kind of need to hit a Zap Cannon for it to be useful. So I go for Zap Cannon and miss. My opponent gets a Spike Up. I'm going to get a Spike Up, assuming they would not want their Skarmory to get Zap Cannon, but they stayed in. And I'm going to go for Zap Cannon on the next turn, in case they want to stay in and roar me. They switch to Gengar, which is another great target for Zap Cannon, but I missed that Zap Cannon as well. Now, my team does not have a Pursuit Trapper. The way that I'm dealing with spikes is Fortress has spin, and I have a second spinner. So if Fortress is sort of sacrificed in the effort of defeating the spin blocker, then I still have my others and the spiker, in this case Skarmory. Then I still maybe have a chance to spin later in the game with my other spinner. But I stay and I get Fire Punch. That's just not good. This is one of the first plays that I say that I could improve here. Is that I should not have risked my Fortress on Fire Punch. I should have just switched to something else. Vaporeon maybe could have been a switch in. I do have a Blissey on this team, and maybe that should have been the switch in. But I am going to go to Vaporeon here, who is going to trade into this Gengar for not very much damage. And yeah, no, this is also not a great play. I, again, should have just went to Blissey. If Gengar is going to trade with my Blissey by going for Explosion, and I lose my Blissey, that could be bad, but at the very least, I could spin the hazards away. And I could have done so without sacrificing my Fortress, and without sacrificing so much health on my Vaporeon. I'm going to Protect to get some chip healing back on the Vaporeon in case I maybe am able to get it in later in this game, and then I will finally go to Blissey, who's taking a Thunderbolt for not very much, and yeah, now this Gengar's forced to either switch or commit really heavy to trading. They end up going to Tyranitar here, which is not great for me, but I do have Claydol, at least as a Rock Resist. It goes for Double Edge, this Tyranitar does, and I go for Earthquake and do piss all damage because I'm cheating. I'm running a very defensive Claydol, not very much attack investment. Now, granted, I don't think I would have killed that Tyranitar if I was running the standard Claydol attack investment anyway, but yeah, like, look at how nasty this position is. Fortunately, I am able to force this Tyranitar to click an attacking move, which means I can go to Sableye. I was just talking about this guy, and sack that. So that Aerodactyl is able to come in and force some progress here. And I do catch this Gengar with a nice Rock Slide, so that's really good. And then they reveal Swampert, and it's like, well, I don't really have very great resources to deal with that. Basically, my only out is if I go to Vaporeon on them clicking a Water-type move. They clicked Focus Punch instead. Very, very good play by them, to be honest. I go to Claydol. My only out is they miss Hydro Pump, and I'm able to spin these hazards away. Another unfortunate reality of my Claydol is that I'm pretty slow, so this Swampert did outspeed me. Although the Swampert may have just been faster than standard Claydol anyway, so maybe that didn't matter. And yeah, now I'm in a situation where Swampert's basically just going to win the game outright here. I go for a Seismic Toss, trying to stop a Focus Punch, but like it doesn't really matter. I was in a 50-50 where I have to get so many 50-50s right that it's just not even worth it. And I get completely slammed here. So yeah, there were some plays that I made that definitely could have been improved upon. Like, no need to sacrifice the whole fortress there. I could have went to Blissey and try to force some progress, at least. Blissey can be kind of nice because it's threatening Thunder Wave, and Tyranitar doesn't love to take a Thunder Wave. So I maybe could have forced in the Swampert, which is maybe a little bit easier for my team to switch into, especially if I had that full health Vaporeon still. And yeah, there's a whole mess there based on some not so good plays. But what about this team's matchup versus like Skarmory Gengar? Frankly, it's not that good. Yes, I have two spinners, and Claydol in particular is pretty good at forcing the Gengar to trade, and the whole kind of concept behind the team is force that Gengar to switch in on Claydol, and then Psychic it down, and if Gengar trades with the Claydol, then great, we still have Fortress to spin the spikes away. And Fortress with Zap Cannon is threatening the Skarmory pretty well. It can kind of cheat its way through the Skarmory and make sure that those spikes stay off the field. But I didn't sequence the right way for that, and like I'm super duper relying on Zap Cannon, which is a very inconsistent move, to force progress against that Skarmory core. So maybe I need to make some changes to the team so that I'm not so completely screwed when I don't land my Zap Cannon into either the Skarmory or the Gengar. That could mean that maybe I have to have a Pursuit Trapper. So let's say the Aerodactyl has to change to be Tyranitar. That could be an option. Maybe that forces some other changes on the team. Maybe, like, say, Vaporeon becomes my Lodic to weather the Sandstorm a little bit better, since I'm going to be playing Sand every game if I have Tyranitar. Or maybe, instead I looked for a different spiker than Fortress, like Skarmory, who is a little bit easier at forcing some progress into the Gengar, because we can Dropeck into it, although that's only reserve that for dire situations when your team is needing to get that chip on Gengar and you're willing to give up the Skarmory at that point. But yeah, we'll have to cook up some different things for this team to succeed, I think. Not to say that it's a bad team just wholly, like the Skarmory matchup isn't completely unplayable, but it's relying on some inconsistent technology, and it's also needing me to make some very, very strong plays into some blind switches at some points. Like, yeah, Blissey could beat the Gengar one-on-one maybe, but when that Tyranitar comes in, it's very dangerous if I'm not clicking Thunder Wave into it. So, yeah. Why did I lose? I have written here, I was unable to punish my opponent for getting 3 layers on the field. Yeah, that's pretty big. I had limited switch-ins to Gengar. I needed to switch to Blissey, though. It was my only switch-in, and I needed to go to it. Which could have been bad if it was just like a special offense team. It doesn't seem like it is. It seems more like a standard TSS. So I don't know if I would have been punished so bad, but I digress. maybe I need another Gengar switch in. I'm unable to switch into DD Tar pretty reliably with this team. I need to make sure that if DD Tar is in, that I'm like pressuring it right away, like with say Vaporeon on the field or Claydol on the field, clicking Earthquake into it, or Blissey going for status to try to slow it down. Yeah. And then I'm unable to break the Swampert without Vaporeon on my team. So, because I sacked my Vaporeon basically to the Gengar early for kind of no reason at all, like, Swampert was able to come in and just clean up. Like, it was pretty easy for my opponent for that. So, yeah, if I'm going to make plays like that, I either need another Swampert check or I need to not make those plays. So, yeah, maybe need to make some team building adjustments. Definitely need to make some in-game decision adjustments. And yeah, that will do it for this replay. Let's go on to the next one here. Still playing on my Agency Pyramids alt. Still running the Pokemon Battle Revolution music. So, let's see. We're in, do I remember this game? Yes, it's playing with a sort of a Superman team, but I have Dugtrio on it. If you're familiar with my Revival run, you may have seen me use this a handful of times. I played with it against Big Chungus IRL, round 7, game 1, which was featured on Revival Tournament's YouTube channel, so I'm sure many of you have seen it. Lead Skarmory versus Tyranitar. I will just go for a Spike, and I think that that's pretty safe against a lead Tyranitar because Tyranitar is not very often paired with Magneton. However, my opponent does have Magneton, so that is what it is. This team prefers if you can trap the Magneton with Dugtrio before the Skarmory gets trapped. That gives you a lot of backbone into particular threats like Snorlax, but I don't know. It's also not super duper likely that there's going to be a Snorlax, given that there's a Tyranitar on the team. So nothing we can really do about that. We're just going to get trapped by the Magneton. I'm going to go into my Dugtrio and trap. They go for Protect. I don't know why people do this. Like, what do you... Like, unless you're playing for a potential, like, PP stall on the Dugtrio, like, what does Protect even get in you this turn? But, alright, I digress. Here comes Celebi. Alright, Celebi's a huge Dugtrio target, so that's really good information for me. I'm going to switch to Gengar, and it's going to reveal to be a Swords Dance Celebi. I don't like that, so I'm going to boom my Gengar right away, and I get a critical hit. I don't think it really matters that much, because even if I don't crit the Celebi, then I can at least trap it with Dugtrio. Now, being in with Dugtrio versus 3 unrevealeds is not a fantastic place to be, but considering that my opponent was going to go to Celebi first, maybe they don't have a super duper hard punish for Dugtrio. In any case, I know that Celebi is a huge win condition for my opponent, passing that Swords Dance off to a threat there. So being able to annihilate it, remove it from the game, is really big for me. I've got my Flygon in versus Swampert. I don't particularly like to be in versus Swampert, so I'm going to go to Blissey, who's going to take the Ice Beam quite well. I'm going to Toxic the Swampert. Usually Ice Beam means not refresh, not always, but that's usually more indicative of an offensive Swampert or the standard defensive Swampert, which has 3 attacks and Protect. So that's fine by me. I'm going to trade my Zapdos into Metagross because if it, say it kills me with Rock Slide, then I've got Dugtrio follow up to trap and kill the Metagross. Neither of these Pokemon love to switch into Dugtrio, especially now that the Swampert is Toxic. But I'm going to go to Blissey, just in case my opponent has, say, like Lastmon Salamence. That would make some sense. Potentially Aerodactyl could make some sense as well. If it's Aerodactyl, though, I can switch into my defensive Flygon with not too much trouble. And Blissey is covering the Salamence as well as anything else on my team could. Instead, we see the Swampert come in, so I can abuse this for some healing. as long as I don't get critically hit on that first turn. And then we can probably just get down to business here with the Blissey. Now, Tyranitar being in, I have my Rock Resist, which is Flygon, so I should be going to that. It's going to double edge this Tyranitar will into my Flygon, which is not great because I take a lot of damage, but I do eliminate the Tyranitar, which is primarily what the Flygon is here to do. So I'm going to protect, get some chip damage on the Swampert, some chip healing for the Flygon. And I think my goal is kind of just going to be to get Flygon as much health as possible. So I'm going to actually sack the Dugtrio in order to do that, because I anticipate that my opponent's last is not something else that's grounded. Look, they have 5 grounded Pokemon. A lot of them are huge Dugtrio targets. That last Pokemon has to be something that can switch into the Dugtrio, and it is an Aerodactyl. So I managed to do really well to get my Flygon in a position where this Aerodactyl is unable to beat me. Now the problem is, this is a sub-Leechy Aerodactyl, and my Flygon actually does not have a Rock-type move. So I go for Flamethrower. It does one of two things. If this is a Choice Banded Aerodactyl, my Blissey's at 90%. It should live any one hit. I just need to dodge some Rock Slide flinches. And Flamethrower can put it into range for an Ice Beam, potentially. And if they lock into Rock Slide on my Flygon, then I'm fine. The other thing that it does is it gets chip on the substitute so that I can try to limit the amount of subs that Aerodactyl is able to get against Flygon. They just go for a double edge there, which is, I guess, fine. They risk a burn, but whatever. Then I can get into Blissey. Now, this Aerodactyl is probably going to just sub down to Leechy range. It actually doesn't, which is indicating to me that they think they're going to live an Ice Beam from that range. I go for an Ice Beam anyway. Now they're definitely not living an Ice Beam, so I have to go for it again here. Going for Soft Boiled, allowing them to be behind a substitute, is not the best spot for me. I know I should live a Rock Slide if they go for it, or a Double Edge, and then I win the game there. So they needed to go for a Rock Slide flinch to win that game, and they certainly could have gotten it and won, and then I would have just had to kind of hold that, because there's not too much that this team could have done to avoid that situation. But yeah, one play that I potentially could have made different to get into a better standing is actually this Zapdos sack here. Metagross, it revealed no item. There's a very good chance that this is a Choice Banded Metagross. I don't know why that evaded me for so long. So, good chance that they could be clicking a Explosion right here. And my Zapdos does have Substitute. I could have played for the Substitute and Scouted. I don't think it's that huge a deal, because if, say, this was an Agility Metagross instead, with Lumberry, and they went for Agility, then they get to Rock Slide into my Zapdos, or even better for them probably would be to Meteor Mash into my Zapdos Substitute, and play for the raise, and that could have been an out for them that I invite if I go for a substitute rather than just taking my damage. But with how the play turned out, and you have to be careful not to think too much with hindsight here. If I'd substituted there, then I save my Zapdos, which is putting some pressure on Tyranitar and Swampert. I could get some damage on them. I could threaten a Thunder Wave on Tyranitar if I have it, which I don't think I do on the Zapdos, but if I did, right? And I have another sack for a potential Last Mon, Aerodactyl, or Salamence, whichever one is going to be there, being a problem for me. Another small optimization I could have made here, turn 21. This Aerodactyl is already behind a substitute. The only thing it can really do to make any progress in this game is to attack my Flygon. Why not just protect there, get a little bit of chip healing? It doesn't really matter that much in the long run, but like, there's no reason to not go for it, so why not go for it? Yeah. I don't think it would have changed anything really, but, you know, if I've got it, why not go for it? And then, yeah. So, did any of the sets feel wrong? Well, if I had a Rock-type move on my Flygon, because the last move is Toxic, then I wouldn't have been in this situation versus Aerodactyl. But I have to kind of weigh my options. Am I okay with my team having to play kind of like this versus a sub-leechy Aerodactyl the handful of times that I run into it? Or would I rather that my Flygon is like kitted to beat kind of every Aerodactyl set, or at least the vast majority of them, by dropping Flamethrower in favor for a Rock-type move, or potentially dropping Toxic? Well, if I drop Flamethrower, that gives me some not so great options for clicking into Skarmory, because then otherwise Flygon is like completely walled by Skarmory. And if I drop Toxic, then that gives me some not so great plays into fat Pokemon that are switching into my kind of passive Flygon set. So I'm going to say that I don't think it's particularly worth it, but that's something I could explore, is maybe I need to have a slightly better out into a sub-leechy Aerodactyl so that I'm not literally having to dodge crit flinch with Blissey to win the game. But why did I win? Well, I identified my opponent's win condition, which is a Swords Dance Celebi. If it passed a Swords Dance to something like, say, this Aerodactyl, I could have been in a lot of trouble, and I nipped that in the bud. Pun completely intended. And then I kept my Blissey and my Flygon healthy. I even sacrificed my Dugtrio to get the health that I needed for both of these Pokemon, to give myself the best chances to beat something like a Lastmon Aerodactyl. So that was very important. And yeah, I think I played that one decently well. So pat myself on the back there a little bit. But before you accuse me of showing too many of my wins, let's maybe show another loss here. Sorry to spoil. Lead Flygon versus lead Zapdos. Kind of a it's a weird matchup. You don't see lead Flygon very often. If you do see it, it's usually on slower paced teams. And I do know who Pooh Balls 4 is. I know that they're going to be playing a slow paced team. Zapdos threatening to HP Ice into the Flygon, so Flygon's going to switch to Blissey, which is fine. I'm going to go for a substitute, though. And I'm able to potentially pass this, and I do. As my opponent doesn't want to allow me to pass into Dugtrio to remove their Blissey so early in the game, they're going to switch back to Flygon, which allows me to get my Gengar in. And I go for Will-O-Wisp, and they switch into Umbreon, so that's not great for me. This is a play where maybe I could have just taken some damage on the Flygon, although Umbreon is always going to present problems for Gengar, but getting burned with my Gengar this early is not great. I'm going to switch to not allow the Umbreon to successfully pursuit trap my Gengar. My opponent predicts that I'll switch as well, going for Charm, but I have Metagross, which doesn't mind Charm even at all. Here comes Vaporeon for my opponent. They're playing double evolutions here. And I go for Boom. That's, I think, a bit hasty. Vaporeon very, very commonly is running Protect. I could have just went for another move, and then if they go for Protect here, rip the Boom on the next turn. I think a part of me was thinking, well, if they Surf, predicting me to not Boom, and then Protect the next turn, that could be bad. But that's not really that crazy, because Surf shouldn't usually be 2-hit KOing my Metagross, and if it is, then I'll just switch and try to find a boom on a later turn. But yeah, that's really bad because that's one of the ways that I punch through Pokemon like Blissey with this team. So yeah, they are going to go to Flygon, and they're going to allow me to take it there, and then they're going to reveal the Piloswine. So I guess a part of the reason why they figured that Flygon was alright there is that the only move I have to hit Flygon with a substitute Baton Pass Zapdos would be HP Ice. And if I have HP Ice, I can't have HP Grass, which means I can't really touch Piloswine. So I'm going to Baton Pass here and get into Suicune, who's going to take an Ice Beam quite well. But the issue is that Blissey plus Vaporeon is a big freaking problem for my Suicune here, who is a sub-CM Suicune. So I don't even have longevity in the form of rest, which is why I'm going to opt to switch out into Gengar here. And then this is not a great spot to be in because Umbreon is pretty free. I will go for a Will-O-Wisp trying to get the Umbreon. I instead get the Fortress, which is actually quite nice. And a critical hit with Thunderbolt, which is really, really nice. I will switch to Zapdos, who should be able to abuse the Umbreon there. So good call by me, as I can get a substitute off. Piloswine's the switch. I can Baton Pass into Suicune. If you go for Ice Beam, you're not making progress into Suicune. And you can't super duper afford to stay in with the Piloswine, in my opinion, because then I surf and do a lot of damage to you. But obviously, Vaporeon's a great switch into Suicune, especially when that's revealed Calm Mind Ice Beam and wasn't willing to stay in to 1v1 the Blissey. So I tried to go to Dugtrio to catch Blissey, but I mean, Vaporeon's there, and that was desperation by me. I should have went to anything else, or even just started Calm Minding up with the Suicune. Force that Vaporeon to go for a Roar if it has it. I will just basically sack off the Raikou here because it's not really doing much versus this full health Blissey that's still here. Then I can use Dugtrio to trap the Piloswine, which has Protect to get a little bit more chip healing. Goes for Protect again, so I'm able to eliminate the Piloswine at the very least. And then, yeah, my win condition is Suicune versus Blissey plus Vaporeon, and I don't even have rest, so this one's kind of over at this stage. And yeah, we don't need to play it out too much. I boom the Gengar. I do trap and eliminate the Umbreon, but I'm just going to get bled out, and I kind of need to just get a freeze on something. And I don't. And yeah, okay, Blissey might even get sacked off to the Dugtrio, but it doesn't, so yeah, I lose. That's kind of what I needed. I needed a critical hit with Dugtrio on Blissey to win the game with Zapdos in the end. Even then, I'm not sure if it would have beaten full health Vaporeon from the health that I was at, but yeah. So I don't think this is an issue of the team. I think this team does have the tools to beat this team. The problem is that I gave the Metagross away way too early and for nothing because of that Protect from Vaporeon. I should have found a more safe position to be clicking that explosion. Say against Blissey, for example. Or even just hold on to the explosion. I don't need to rip it so soon. If we could eliminate that Fortress, if we could eliminate, say, even the Flygon, which we did eventually, then nothing, like, eliminating the Blissey or the Vaporeon or the Umbreon could have been really big for my team. But I really needed it to land into Blissey or Vaporeon to sort of get some pressure off of my Suicune. And even maybe some pressure off of Raikou as well. But yeah, I also needed to be a little bit less, like, playing less risky with that Doug trio to find the Blissey. It was just a mess, really, after turn 6. So, yeah. If any sets that feel wrong to me, I don't think so. I mean, my win conditions being Raikou Suicune is always going to be a little bit rough into Blissey plus another Suicune counter. But, like, what am I going to do about that? Vaporeon is not common enough for me to, like, really reconsider the whole Suicune, I don't think. But maybe there's an argument that I should be, like, a rest variant of Suicune to help out with PP stalling the Vaporeon, or putting myself in a last mon situation where +6 Ice Beam could maybe be making progress into the Vaporeon. Another potential cause for concern is spikes with this team, because I don't have a spinner, and there are quite a lot of grounded Pokemon, including all of the win conditions. It's possible maybe I want a Claydol on this team, maybe potentially over the Gengar slot to help out with the Spikes matchup, but I don't think that was the key reason why I lost this game. That Spike was annoying, but not like the real difference maker per se, or the main difference maker per se. But yeah, I mean, really this just came down to I was way too hasty with that boom on Metagross. I need to play more patient, and matchups like that maybe don't happen quite the way that one did. All right, so now that was all of the replays that I've already done my own reviews on. This one I'm going to kind of do a live review. Let's get the music going. So this was for a Mushi League game. That's the team tournament that I'm in, so shout out to my teammates, the N-Perts. And this is against another, I believe, rookie in the league. So they were 5-1 going into this matchup. I was 5-1 going into this matchup. We're both rookies. There's a superlative for Rookie of the Season. So as you could probably guess, this is like a deciding factor here. This is game... it's hard to say what game this is. This is like the first game of the set that is going to be remembered in the history books. We did play a game before this, but the servers shut down while we were getting into the end game, and like I do think my opponent probably wins it. It sort of depends. I definitely had outs, and they possibly could have thrown, so hard to say. We just had to kind of void that whole 70-something turn game. And this is the next game that we play right after that. Or is this the next game that we play? No, I think this is, I think I lost a game after that, and then this is the next game. So I'm playing for my superlative life here, as well as for my team to progress in playoffs. Lead Tyranitar versus Lead Tyranitar. I'm just going to Earthquake, which I think is the right move for my team most of the time, because I don't want a +2 Tyranitar staring me down if I make a bad switch. And I managed to get the roll on my second Earthquake, which is maybe lucky, but I don't know. I'm going to DD in the face of this Skarmory, and I'm going to go for a Focus Punch as they go for Roar. So DD Focus Punch, you don't see that very often, but it is kind of a cool tech, and it worked out pretty well against that Skarmory. Arguably, I could have went for a Rock Slide, which would have done not quite as much damage, but it has the flinch chance, and if I flinch that Skarmory and then go for Focus Punch, I could have blown the game wide open right there. But like fishing for that 27% when I could get even more guaranteed damage, it's really hard to say that that's the wrong play to make there. But I get roared into my defensive Jirachi as they reveal Moltres, and I don't necessarily want to take a Fire Blast, or in this case an Overheat, that critically hits my Blissey. But Blissey is going to take that pretty well. A little bit of trivia for you. In Generation 3, Overheat is considered a contact move, so abilities that can trigger on contact moves, like Static, can trigger on Overheat. you should go find the replay where a Moltres clicks Overheat into Breloom and then gets put to sleep by Effect Spore. That's really funny. Alright, Swampert coming in on Blissey is kind of... The danger signals are going off. That's probably an offensive Swampert that has a way to smash my Blissey. So I need to make a play that stops that from happening, and I go to Zapdos, which also covers the switch to Moltres, which is really fortunate for me. Now I'm kind of playing with momentum here. I will choose to just give that momentum right back by slamming a Thunderbolt into their Blissey. But that's kind of okay because Blissey's a momentum sink kind of as is, and my Blissey, I guess, is also a momentum sink, but uh-oh, that is a Calm Mind Blissey, so maybe not quite as much a momentum sink as I was letting on. I have to go for a T-Wave to paralyze that Blissey, and then I will switch to Claydol to threaten the Boom. If I got Ice Beam there, I would have taken a lot of damage, but I didn't get Ice Beamed. In fact, that's how much damage I would have taken from that Ice Beam. So, yikes. Yeah, I get a nice Earthquake off on that Blissey to put it at 46%. And I anticipate that my opponent is not going to stay in with the Blissey, because if I boom the Blissey, that's their primary win condition, and they lose it right there. Unless this is a Curse Swampert, then I don't know. Maybe they could have afforded that. But because I think that they're not going to stay in with Blissey because they're afraid of boom, and they don't necessarily want to give me a Rapid Spin either, I thought Gengar could have been likely, so I went for Psychic, and I actually got it. So, nice play by me. Shoutouts to Tetrafolium making the right moves here. As we switch in our defensive Jirachi into an Ice Punch from Gengar, I am willing to take the Will-O-Wisp here to get a Toxic on Gengar. That's not good. I was willing to take a Will-O-Wisp there because I have Aromatherapy on my Blissey, but I probably should have went for a Fire Punch there. Maybe my opponent is thinking that getting a burn on my Jirachi is huge progress for them, and was willing to potentially get burned on their Gengar for the sake of making that progress. So I should have played a little bit more just what's in front of me. I was trying to catch the Moltres coming in, because if I can Toxic that Moltres, then that eliminates a headache for me. Instead, I'm gonna kind of just be left holding the bag here. I go for a Wish. I have to Toxic this Blissey. And as we're gonna see here, my team, if this Tyranitar is as compromised as it is, does not have a fantastic way to break through a Calm Mind Blissey. So, yeah, that's kind of rough. Blissey's gonna come in on another Overheat here. I didn't get critically hit, so we're fine. Opponent going to go to Swampert as I go for Aromatherapy. And another thing about this team, I don't have a great way to deal with the Swampert, because I go to the Zapdos here, but that was a bluff. My Zapdos actually does not have Hidden Power Grass. It doesn't have Hidden Power at all. So I think my opponent's going to catch on to that at some point throughout this game. But yeah, Swampert's another Pokemon that I can't really break through very well with this team. So I'm going to opt to stay in and protect with my Jirachi, who's going to take its own Wish here. And then I'm going to go to Lastmon Suicune, who actually, honestly, is not terrible at breaking through Swampert, but it's not great at breaking through Swampert when there's a whole Blissey to switch into. So I'm going to, after I've stolen double the PP from that Overheat with my Suicune, I'm going to get into my Jirachi. I have to Toxic this Blissey to force it to switch, because if Blissey gets to +6, not really much I can do about that with my team. I can Roar it with Zapdos, but obviously +6 Ice Beam is going to floor my Zapdos, so can't really rely on that. My opponent's going to attempt to get a crit or a paralysis on my Jirachi, which I think is pretty sensible. And manages to get the Moltres in. Blissey's going to come in, and we're going to have to play this song and dance a little bit. So, to the chagrin of some of you, I'm going to play on fast mode. But really, what I'm starting to realize with this team as I'm playing it, and I've made some adjustments maybe to help me out here, is that the combination of Swampert plus CM Blissey is very, very difficult for my team to make much progress against. And the reason being is that Jirachi is the only thing that can force this Blissey to switch, other than Tyranitar, but I have a lead Tyranitar, and if I find myself in a lead matchup where I have to switch, or I kind of have to like stay in and duel whatever's in front of me, then Tyranitar is not going to be a consistent answer for Blissey. So, one of the things that I've thought about is if I run Toxic on Blissey, so that my Blissey coming in is at least forcing their Blissey out, and then if I can get a Toxic on something else, they have CM Blissey, so they're not able to do much to stop that, which could be good for me. Now, as you'll notice, I had to go to Zapdos to roar that Blissey out because I got a burn on it, which is really bad for me because Blissey can kind of just tank through the burn, and not much I can do about that. So I had to sacrifice a lot of my Zapdos there. I could rest to get it back up, but there aren't very many Pokemon on my opponent's team that will allow me to do such a thing. I do think that if I have some notes for my opponent, that may explain why they're not just completely running away with the game, even though they are kind of on the they're putting me on the back foot, is that they haven't tried to go back to the Skarmory to get some more spikes up. And yes, I still have the spinner here, and yes, I'm threatening to get some big damage onto Gengar, but with my spinner, if I can find a good turn for it, like they need to get that spikes going to force my Claydol into so that they can get the trade. I do find a nice wish into my Tyranitar here, which is going to put me back into this game a bit, and that's a key turn that is going to be instrumental in me making this comeback here. And this is another one, is getting the Toxic on Moltres. So I've identified that this Moltres with Overheat Flamethrower, last two moves are going to be some combination of Hidden Power, Roar, and Will-O-Wisp, right? They can't really afford to run Rest, and especially not with the pace of this team. And this Blissey, because it's Calm-Minded, it's revealed all its moves, it can't be Aromatherapy. So if I can get a Toxic onto Moltres, that's going to slow it down. So I made a play there to Toxic on a Toxic Blissey to ensure that this Moltres is taking damage here. So now they stay in going for Flamethrower, I think a little bit unnecessarily, because there's never a chance in hell that I'm allowing the Jirachi to just take a fire move for nothing. I will switch to Jirachi now on this Gengar, and because this Moltres is Toxic now, I can go for Fire Punches a little bit more freely. A Fire Punch into Moltres, that's just 10% chip there. And you're taking the Toxic damage as well. That's good for me. I'll take that. I'm going to switch to Blissey as they switch to Swampert. I'm going to have to Soft Boiled to get some HP back on my Blissey, but that's probably not the best play even. I knew that this had to be an offensive perk the way that they were playing it. And taking the Focus Punch there was kind of unnecessary, I think. I probably should have went to either Zapdos to sack that off or Suicune. I will go for an Aromatherapy, and they're going to kill my Blissey, which is really, really bad for me, because now I don't have a great switch into Moltres and Gengar. But I am going to be able to threaten a Toxic on the Pert. I'm going to go for a Wish first. If they crit me, I probably just lose the game right there. But, you know, we kind of have to... Sometimes we just got to take those. I am able to get my Jirachi back to full health, and I identify that Jirachi is kind of the key for me to win the game now. I make a kind of risky play to Suicune. If they had predicted it and went for an HP Grass, I would have been in a lot of trouble, but that's fine. I'll go back to Jirachi to put some pressure on Skarmory, who opted to switch out, didn't want to take the Fire Punch from my Jirachi there. I go for another Toxic, trying to catch the Swampert. I have to be careful. If I run out of Toxic PP before the Swampert comes in, I could lose. And if this Swampert is Refresh, I just lose anyway. But considering they haven't been going to the Swampert, I think they probably are not Refresh. But they do happen to go to the Swampert there, and I do catch them with the Toxic. That is exactly what I needed to win this game, because now Jirachi can kind of stall into Swampert and Moltres until they die from Toxic. Skarmory's not making progress on Jirachi, and then this Gengar's too low to really deal with it. If I can manage to remove all these pieces, and I have a Toxic left to hit into this Blissey, I should win the game. Though I have to be careful, because Blissey can try to win the game before my Jirachi's able to get the Toxic off on it. I'm going to go for Rest on Zapdos to potentially get it back into the game. My other moves are Sleep Talk, Roar, so I might be able to get a fast Roar off on, say, a Blissey if it's getting out of control, and that's my only way to win. But hopefully we don't have to play into that. My opponent's going to switch without getting too much damage on the Jirachi, which is going to allow me to get some chip on Swampert, which is huge. Anticipating that my opponent is going to stay in and go for Calm Mind, I'm going to use the turn to try to roll the Sleep Talk Rest, the Sleep Talk Roar on them. If I'm being honest with myself, on that turn, I probably should have just not clicked Sleep Talk at all, and then that'll allow my Zapdos to wake up, which could make it threatening into Skarmory or Gengar later in the game. But it's not the world we're living in. Suicune is in. I'm going to make a crazy play to Claydol. If they went for Ice Beam there, that actually would have been really, really good for them. And I managed to get my Rapid Spin off, force that Skarmory to have to click another turn of Spikes, which gives my Jirachi some chip healing. I don't know how much that's going to matter, but it could matter a lot. And I get my Tyranitar in on Blissey, and now this is a great position for me, because I can just click Focus Punch and do a lot of damage to something, which it happens to be Skarmory, which is beautiful, because Rock Slide is going to finish it off. I don't think my opponent should have let the Skarmory go so freely there, but their offensive pert is already not taking great rolls from, say, like a potential Focus Punch, and they're Toxic, so they're not a great Tyranitar check, just period. I managed to get my Zapdos in, who has to burn 2 turns of sleep, so this is the annoying part of Zapdos here. I sort of anticipate that my opponent would stay in an Ice Beam, but they switched to Blissey instead, which is fine for me, because I can go for a Toxic and Force Fist to switch. I'm running really low on Toxics. I think I'm down to 2, or maybe 1. So I have to be very, very conservative with my Toxic clicks at this stage. Which is fine, because I have a 100% HP Tyranitar who can be the thing that forces Blissey to switch. So that's why I say it was key to get that HP back on Tyranitar there. Now I'm going to sack Zapdos, because it doesn't really do anything for me for the rest of this game. I can just try to roll some Roars, force the Blissey out, maybe force some chip on Moltres if that comes in. I opt to actually just burn the turn of sleep there and save it. I don't know, maybe I should have sacked there. But I do go to my Jirachi, land the Toxic here. I'm reading 2 Toxics. I might be out, or I might have 1 more, I'm not sure. I don't remember how many I clicked into Moltres. I think just 1. Which is maybe an avenue that my opponent could have taken to try to win this game, was to switch to Moltres more on potential Toxic clicks to burn more of my PP, but they didn't opt to go for that. Now Focus Punch is just winning this game here because Swampert is in range of Earthquake. Moltres can't really come in because it's going to die to toxic damage. I'm going to sack my Zapdos to get my Claydol in. I'm going to click Boom. If they stayed in with Blissey, they super duper lose. If they switch to Moltres, then they're 0 Calm Mind Blissey, and I'm able to land my very last Toxic of the game on the Blissey, which is just going to guarantee the win for me because Jirachi can kind of just wish and get out of the situation. I can sack my Suicune. I could even get Tyranitar in to threaten some damage and chip out that Blissey and be very good there. So, I think this is a situation where I think I played this very well and found a lot of key turns to get myself back into what I thought was a losing game. But, like, you know, for example, getting the Toxic on Moltres and on Swampert and getting some chip healing back for or a wish healing back for my Tyranitar, which seemed to be out of this game after it traded into opponent Tyranitar. I also managed my Toxic PP well. I had the perfect amount to get this Toxic on Blissey in the end game, and I identified which pieces were able to kind of be thrown away. Like the Suicune didn't really do much this game, but it didn't really need to do much, considering that there was the whole Blissey to stop me. Now, if I was able to kill the Blissey, say with Tyranitar, that changes things. The Suicune would look very good into this team, but like you have to be realistic. You know, we can't live in Disneyland where you kill the one counter to the thing that's 5-0s and just that be the win condition for you. But the change that I've made, I think with this team is Toxic on the Blissey. I think I might have mentioned that earlier. That means that if I'm in a situation versus a Calm Mind Blissey like this, I can use my Blissey, who's going to be the Pokemon that wants to be in versus opposing special attacker, i.e. their Calm Mind Blissey the most. Use the Toxic to force that Blissey to switch out, and then I can maybe get some momentum with my Blissey, clicking an Ice Beam or I don't actually... Do I have Ice Beam on this? No, I don't think so. I could click a Seismic Toss into something, or maybe get a Toxic on something else, or predict the switch, get something in with my team, and there we go. Now, you could say there are some weird choices on this team, like, for example, this Zapdos set with Thunderbolt, Roar, Rest, Sleep Talk with no spikes is very strange. You think that's not making so much progress, but it is to help out in situations where, like, something is boosting and kind of getting out of control. So, I don't think that's too bad. It's possible we could look into messing with the Zapdos set, though. To make it a little bit more generally useful, but I digress. The team's very reliant on Jirachi's Toxic to make progress, which might not be sufficient for winning a game, you know. If the opponent has Heal Bell or Aromatherapy, they have 8 clicks of that move. I have only 16 clicks of Toxic. If they manage it well, they could run away with the game, so it could be bad for me. So there you go. I've shown you some examples of winning replays and still things I could have improved, maybe potential changes to the team to improve that as well. I've shown you some losses and explained sort of why I lost, and it's not always just the team's fault. Don't get into the habit of blaming the team too much. That's a dangerous place to be, where you're like, oh, well, if I just changed to this set, I would have won that matchup, and then queue up another game and lose because you changed your set. Yeah, don't fall into that trap. Anyway, this has been some replay review, how you can do it for yourself. I hope this was helpful, and hopefully we can finish out this series on team building. If you have any suggestions for what you would like me to cover next, I'm definitely open to them. But as a little bit of an update for this channel, I am fortunately and unfortunately not as busy with tournaments right now, so that means that I can do some more content, and I'm kind of interested in doing some streaming, so let me know if you're interested in that. I'll probably be putting out some sort of poll or announcement on my community page for when I'm looking to do my next stream, which I haven't done since my my viability rankings, and that was like many weeks ago, so we got to get into it. All right, we can't let Zets be the only ADV streamer in the zeitgeist, right? So be anticipating some more of that type of stuff. As this series winds down, I may be looking to start another series, or I may be going back to some more Pokemon and ADV, so if you have some Pokemon suggestions, leave those in the comments as well, and always remember to like and subscribe and do all that nice stuff. This has been Tetrafolium, and we'll see you for the next video.